We meet lots of interesting characters in the Bumped Body exhibition. A character called Bumpman appears in several pieces, with versions carved from wood and cast in bronze. In this piece he sits on a little stool, peering upwards with a sad but peaceful look on his face. He's covered in uneven bumps, which have been carefully carved by the artist and glazed with mottled colours ranging from reds and pinks to blues and greens. We come across a whole family of strange figures called Wild Bunch in another part of the gallery. These characters are ceramic, which means they've been sculpted from clay rather than carved from wood like most of the other pieces in the exhibition. They've been glazed so they have a shiny surface, but no colour has been added. They do look human, but are not quite realistic, with their animal-like ears and their rough, lumpy bodies. They're arranged in groups in the gallery, possibly families, of adults and children. Before I tell you any more about these characters, I'd like you to discuss your first reactions to them. Pause the video in a moment to discuss your ideas as a group, or if you're at home, write down or record your ideas. What do you think of Bumpman? Who do you think he is? What might he represent? What do you think he's thinking or feeling? How does he make you feel? Now you're going to look at Wild Bunch. Take a closer look at the figures. Notice the shapes and textures. What words would you use to describe them? We know they're made from ceramic rather than carved from wood like Bumpman. What difference does this make? Like most artists, the inspiration for Paloma Varga Weisz's work comes from a huge range of different things. She talks of having an archive in her brain, almost like a big library of different images and artwork she's seen, books, history, religious objects, and that all combines with her own personal experiences to form ideas for her work. When talking about the inspiration for Bumpman, Varga Weisz mentions seeing a very old book with images of different diseases, like the plague, with simplified illustrations. She also takes inspiration from very old paintings like this one, by 15th century artist Piero della Francesca. I think you can particularly see the similarities in the faces, which are slightly flattened and simplified. The artist also says that Bumpman is a hopeful character, and although he looks as though he has some kind of disease, he doesn't appear to be suffering. His pose, sat on the stool with his hands and feet crossed, is quite relaxed, almost like he's accepted his fate and is content with it. Like Bumpman, Paloma Varga Weisz drew on lots of ideas when creating the Wild Bunch figures. As they appear to be part human, part animal, we might associate them with fauns or characters from myths and fairy tales. However, Varga Weisz says they're actually more inspired by the possibilities of childhood imagination, and by figures from medieval paintings like this one by Lucas Cranach the Elder, which shows primitive naked people lounging on a riverbank with lions and deer. As the name suggests, these families of figures are quite wild. As well as their unusual ears, they have a rough, unrefined shape, as though the artist has left them unfinished, choosing not to smooth out the clay on their limbs and torsos. This makes them appear quite primitive, almost as if they may be covered in fur rather than skin. However, their poses are so skillfully done, clearly human, and quite civilized, that they cross the boundary between these two states. Texture is clearly an important quality in Paloma Varga Weisz's work. The process of carving wood is very highly skilled. Varga Weisz says it's like peeling a wooden apple and you can't correct mishaps. It lends itself well to creating rough, organic textures which we see in some pieces, But in the figures which are clearly more human, she achieves a beautifully smooth surface, which must be painstaking to achieve. When creating all her work, Varga Weisz works intuitively, which means she doesn't always know what something will look like when she begins a piece. She responds to the materials she's using, and the sculpture and its meaning shifts and changes as she works. Another theme we see across Varga Weisz's work is characters who we might think of as hybrids, which are part human and part something else. Some could be described as being anthropomorphic, something which is half human and half animal. We get hints of this with the Wild Bunch figures, but in some of her smaller carvings it's more obvious. For example, this bust of a dog with what appears to be a human neck and body, and this little man with a pine cone growing from his skull. Varga Weisz also creates animals that seem to have human qualities, like this deer who stands on his hind legs like a human. The way he faces the wall makes it almost look as if he's admiring his own shadow, like he's posing for himself in the mirror. I'd like you to take inspiration from the themes of texture and hybrid characters to create your own artwork inspired by Paloma Varga Weisz. You could create a character inspired by Paloma Varga Weisz's work, which combines human and animal qualities. You could use texture to make your creature seem more wild. It could have scales, bumps, feathers, or fur, or you could invent your own textures. This could be a drawing, a painting, or a sculpture. You could use clay or plasticine, or even try carving soap. Or you could take inspiration from the Pinecone Man, creating a character that incorporates an organic shape with human form. You might want to collect some organic forms to inspire you. Try to find things with really good textures like pine cones or shells or rocks, and use these as a starting point for your work. As always, we'd love to see what you make, so make sure that you or your teacher share your work with us, and we'll feature it on our website and our social media channels. Thanks for watching. We hope you've enjoyed finding out more about the work of Paloma Varga Weisz and that it's inspired you to make some artwork of your own.